John Johnson, my native blood is Cree. I'm here to tell the story of a life stolen from me. My grandfather's grandfather was a great war chief, Big Bear. And Flora, my grandmother, worked with medicine and prayer. My mother is Saskatchewan, my daddy ex-Marine. And I was just a half-breed falling somewhere in between. Somewhere in between.
Canada prides itself as being an exemplary multicultural nation based on values of equal opportunity, inclusivity, and freedom. The name itself often evokes feelings of home, protection, and sovereignty, which comes as no surprise as the name is derived from the St. Lawrence Iroquois word, Kanata, meaning village.
Shame and ridicule, foundations of despair,
Unfortunately, Canada throughout its history has had a less than admirable relationship with its Indigenous people. In 1951, a collective group of Aboriginal organizations came together in an effort to change that relationship. Native Friendship Centers would be established across Canada to help create positive relationships between Indigenous people and urban communities. By this time, a noticeable number of Aboriginal people were moving from reserves to larger urban areas of Canada, primarily to seek an improved quality of life. Since then, over 100 friendship centers have been established across Canada. The jury is still out on whether the movement has achieved its goals. The nuances of the effort can be best exemplified by the disappointment and broken promises that the Aboriginal community in Red Deer, Alberta has had to endure. The Red Deer Native Friendship Centre can trace its history to mid-1980s, to the historic Parsons House in downtown Red Deer. Lyle Kuwaitan Richards was there during those early years.
Bulldozer was idling in the back lot when we managed to get the money together for a mortgage to buy the place.
The Friendship Centre eventually had its capital funding cut. The city of Red Deer called the mortgage, and Parsons House was lost. Like its founder's ancestral past, has since led a nomadic existence, setting up shop in various locations in and around downtown Red Deer. But not having a place to stake permanent roots would be the least of the Friendship Centre's troubles. The latest disappointment takes us back to the early 2000s, to a trail paved with good intentions but littered with broken promises.
I was on the mayor's task force for the elimination of homelessness in 10 years. So it was basically, the idea was to make a plan, and we had many, many meetings where we came together talking about what could we do. And that's where the idea of housing first came in, the Buffalo, affordable housing downtown, and all these sort of harm reduction and these sorts of things. That's where that was all adopted. During that process, the then director of the Michener Center, Wayne Morrow, came into one of the meetings and he says, they've decided that they're going to send a parcel of land to the city, for development. Part of that parcel of land will be several acres of affordable housing. That's part of the deal. If that's going to come over, this has to be on there.
The project had many false starts. Finally, in 2008, the province of Alberta identified Clearview Ridge, a brand new development on the northeast edge of Red Deer, as a site to develop affordable housing. By 2011, it was decided that the center was going to be named Asooahum Crossing, a Cree word meaning to cross. Asooahum Crossing would be designed and purpose-built to provide affordable housing, programs, and services that honor Aboriginal culture and spiritual practices. People would come here to safely transition to an urban way of life.
So when the residents came along and said we weren't told, we kind of went, what do you mean you weren't told? We knew back then that it was coming. Well, nobody wrote it on the map.
Throughout the years of planning and development of Clearview Ridge, no mention of the center was ever made in any public documents. When the penny finally dropped in 2011, The houses of Clearview Ridge were built and sold. Kids were going to school, and anonymous letters were starting to circulate about drunken Indians, lazy people on the sidewalks, and the side effects on property values in the neighborhood.
What did I do?
Wow.
That's one of the little ones.
By late October of 2012, it was becoming clear that the residents of Clearview Ridge did not want the center in their community, and so turned the hand of Red Deer City Council to reverse the decision to have it built.
Whatever happens with this decision, I hope that it's not perceived in our community as a win-lose. And in fact, some of us who may be sitting in this room or watching it may even perceive it as, if this a bylaw amendment goes down, as a lose-lose for our community.
Okay. We have the vote. There are 8 possible ballots. 1 is in favor and 7 are opposed. That means that the motion, the second reading, has failed. And now I would turn to Mr.
Now, the night that they did that, I didn't go. I lit a smudge outside for anybody that needed it, whether it was people from the community or whether it was people from the Friendship Center. You know, I just said, you know, like, I can't go listen to that. My soul won't take that. So I just sat outside with the smudge and helped people there. So we went up there and we set up a tripod, you know, of teepee poles and with flags and prints, and we basically did a farewell song and walked away. We said, look, this isn't our place anymore. It was promised to us. We were ready to make ceremony. We were ready to make it ours, but instead we're leaving this and walking away.
The whole ordeal is a classic case of NIMBY, not in my backyard, an acronym that safely describes the racial prejudice based on decisions by a community.
It really got me is just recently we did the Walking with Our Sisters, you know, at the museum, where there was moccasins put down for all the murdered and missing women that happened, and I started to connect the dots between what happened at Clearview Ridge and what's going to happen at Asooahum. And I got thinking, well, how many people died, you know, from addictions and from various things that should have been housed and treated and, you know, helped. You know, that place should have been built, you know, years ago, but it didn't. And so between that time and now, and by the time we get it built, how many people are dying? Quite literally, you know, addicted, on the road, going up to Edmonton, going to Calgary, getting picked up in prostitution and whatnot, being addicted, you know, and losing their lives. And that's a direct result of the decision that was made up there. Those people's lives are gone because they got no place to go in Red Deer.
Here we're looking at the Clearview North neighborhood area structure plan.
Maurice Flewelling, mayor of Red Deer at the time, was quoted saying that it was hard to see anything good come out of this situation, and that no person or group can be to blame. Red Deer Native Friendship Center Executive Director Tanya Schuer responded by saying that they had trusted the process and it had failed.
I guess I seem to be learning more and more about this as we go. I'm quite familiar with area structure plans myself. Council approved this area structure plan in 2007. One of the biggest problems I have at this point with what's happened recently here is I feel that this process is being really deceitful, and I'm not really sure if, not accusing council of it whatsoever, but it seems like there's a hidden agenda here that there was even members of the Friendship Society stated that there was discussions years ago, and it almost sounds like this has been promised.
Despite the discouraging result, the process proved useful at uncovering the lengths that the city would need to go to rebuild trust with its Aboriginal community.
These types of dwellings.
We're not talking about a reservation here.
No, I understand.
It further demonstrated the undeniable need for the Friendship Center and the work that it needs to do to educate the community about its purpose.
There's, okay, this is the site.
Eventually, after years of fighting an uphill battle explaining the struggles of urban Aboriginal peoples and the need for a cultural center in Red Deer, a new but much smaller site was chosen for Asooahum Crossing along Riverside Drive. Once finished, it will present an opportunity for Aboriginal peoples to practice the teachings of Wakotowin and share the richness of the culture with all citizens of Red Deer. The center at the new location will be built in spiritual relationship with the land, in proximity to the river, close to walking trails, transit routes, and is closer to downtown, but not without the obstacles.
The challenge it is actually for the orientation of the building, because that's very narrow, and then you turn the building around facing to the east directly. The building actually have an angle with the internal road, and the building has to be built up quite high, 1.8 meters above existing ground. So
some of the architectural challenges include honoring the Thunderbird, keeper of the thunder, rain, and darkness. This design was created to ensure that there would be a visible cultural presence in Red Deer and to showcase Aboriginal cultures. The complex is being built with minimal disturbance of soil and existing environment. Public hearings have taken place, the neighbors have been informed, and concerns have been addressed. Richard says this time it was people talking to people rather than residents speaking to Aboriginal applicants. The downside is the fact that the housing units will be ready without the cultural center.
We know that we're going to get these 16 units built. We're pretty sure that the tower will go up. What we're not funded for is the cultural center. And that's a $5 million project. Up to now, nobody seems to be wanting to step forward and provide those supports. Again, that's the misunderstanding. When we have people living in a place, they need to have the cultural supports or they fail. And so if we can't be down there with our housing people, with our medical people, with our parenting people, you're beginning to see a pattern, with our education people, they're not going to make it. So we have to be able to find a way of getting those services down there to support those people in situ. Otherwise, it's going to be a real problem.
Bridges to build before Asooahum Crossing finds the support that it needs. The Red Deer Native Friendship Center is looking forward to opening the Asooahum Housing Development and Cultural Center. Finding support for Asooahum Crossing starts with turning stereotypical perceptions of Indigenous people. If we are to truly overcome these barriers and finally support one another in the truest sense, we first need to open ourselves to better understanding and respect another's culture and spiritual beliefs, instead of imposing our own as a solution. It starts with ourselves and the way we see the world and the people in it.